Hi, everyone. Oh, hi, Dr. Emily. So good to see you.
Good to
There
see
has been so much excitement this morning. I can't tell you how many
you.
emails I'm getting
I love it.
saying that they're interested in hearing what you have to say.
Perfect.
So let me introduce Dr. Emily. I'm Mindy Eisenberg. I'm the director of Yoga Moves MS. We are a nonprofit that provides adaptive yoga and wellness education for people with MS and Parkinson's and neuromuscular conditions. Dr. Emily, thank you so much. We're so honored that you are with us today. And let me tell you about her. She is a functional podiatrist and human movement specialist. She is the mind behind the Basso. Wait till you hear about it. With the spirit to challenge conformity, Dr. Splichal has taken her conventional podiatric medical degree and combined it with years of experience and expertise in human movement and sensory science to found Nabasso. She believes that our experience in this world is built around sensory stimulation and our ability to process, perceive, and integrate this information effectively. Since 2012, wow, 20 years ago, Dr. Splichal has been traveling the world to share her unique approach to human movement, foot function, and barefoot science. Having taught in 35 countries and to 20,000 professionals, Dr. Splichal has quickly become a global leader in barefoot training and rehab. She says, life is sensory. This means that all movement patterns are fed by and led by sensory stimulation. Sufficient sensory stimulation must enter the body to create proper motor patterns. Wow, that is a lot. You have done so much. You're really a groundbreaker. And I have to say, you know, in yoga, at least the way I practice, first of all, I have a foot fetish. And all our students in person, though we haven't done this in a while, get foot massages at the end of class.
I love it.
Yes, and that's just a bribe to have them come, really. And so tell us a little bit about what functional podiatry is, because honestly, I didn't know it existed till I read about you.
Yeah, a lot of people don't. And first, thank you for having me on. I do apologize for my voice, a little bit of laryngitis, but super excited to share with everyone about how powerful our feet are to the way we move, the way we balance, relate to ourselves and our environments. So functional podiatry is going to be kind of what that word means, is this integrated holistic approach to podiatric care or foot care, which ultimately ties into movement care. So podiatrists, even though we treat the feet, we really treat movement. So I personally, as a functional podiatrist, look at functional movement patterns. I factor in stress levels, breathing patterns, gut biome, everything with my patients.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes,
I'm obsessed with the gut biome.
I know. Oh, me too, me too. And really the other big part that I do want to put across is how I factor in the emotional state of the individual with their condition. Let's take an easy example for podiatry. If someone has plantar fasciitis, everyone is going to respond slightly different emotionally to that experience, which is where I actually started getting into more functional podiatry. Is I started gravitating towards chronic conditions, chronic patients, and there's just a different complexity in the human being when you have something for a long time, emotionally, how you're going to relate to that.
Yeah, we find that some students or some people with a certain chronic condition become identified by their condition.
Yep.
But not our Yoga Move students. They are resilient and they know better.
Yes.
So how does Neuro Rehab, does that fit into this whole wellness integrative perspective?
So it does. So the way that I learned about feet in traditional podiatry school was very biomechanical. It was, high arches, flat feet, pronation, supination, orthotics, supportive shoes. And then what I started to find out as I got out of traditional medicine was this very powerful sensory aspect to the foot into the human body, which is why you have a foot fetish. I have a sensory fetish. I don't know if that even exists, but I am literally obsessed with sensory information, sensory stimulation, sensory processing, because it's so powerfully influential to the way that we move. So neuro rehab, or a neuro approach to feet and movement, is really saying that the way that we anticipate, perceive, process, and then utilize sensory information ultimately dictates how we move. And then people break down somewhere in that process. Some people can't feel the information. Some people don't do with it when they do feel it. And then other people are just not, it's more of a timing thing, that it's not fast enough. So I'm just trying to optimize the efficiency of that process. So that's really how I would look at that neuro rehab, podiatry, sensory side.
Now, when you mentioned some people can't feel it, we have people who have, MS. Sometimes they have numbness on the bottom of their feet. So how does this play in? Like if they have numbness?
So the way that we control balance and movement is 4 input systems, and I'm sure your yoga moves students are probably familiar with this, but I'll still introduce it. We use our eyes, ears, so vestibular, the inner ear, plus auditory, so sound, so you get kind of two for one there. Proprioception, which is the joints, and then touch, which is the bottom of the feet and the palm of the hand. Okay, now any stimulus to those 4 input systems is considered noise. So we want to just think of it as noise that is good and necessary. So good noise, yes. If you take away one of those 4 input systems, such as neuropathy, you have 3 left that your body has to upregulate to make sure you complete the ability to maintain balance or posture. Now, in certain people, if they have neuropathy and hearing loss in one ear, well, I kind of compromised 2 of the 4. So if my system doesn't have the capacity or know the strategy to upregulate the other 2 that remain, I'm going to be a fall risk, as an example. So at Naboso, I'll just kind of pull in with our textured products, we are essentially turning the noise up to what the individual is feeling. So if you hold our Neuro ball, or you put on our socks, as an example, which has a texture to the touch, I'm now trying to help you, even if you have neuropathy, feel and access that input point. Some of these other ones, you might literally need to turn the volume up, which is why I call it noise. And I tell people,
what'd you say?
Noise.
Someone asked what the 4 sensory systems are. Again, can you just repeat that one more time?
Yes, visual, eyes, vestibular, but vestibular is your inner ear and sound. So sound, rhythm, music, huge. 3rd is proprioception, which is joints and muscle tendons. And then 4 is touch. So those are your 4 systems.
Okay. We think of proprioception in yoga, or at least the way I'm describing it, is the space around us. And then interoception is the space within us.
Yep.
I have your ball too here. It's got these little pricklies on it for the sensory stimulation.
Yes.
So explain how this impacts balance and even core, and how you can improve by stimulating your senses, the bottom of your feet or your hands.
Yeah. So why I'm pretty obsessed with sensory and feet is that there's this unique opportunity that the only contact point between the body and the ground is the feet. So, and you're in the skin in the bottom of the feet, right? So if you're thinking, okay, for me to stand and navigate in gravity, what is touching the ground I'm standing on?
Yes.
Right? This skin is so freaking powerful that
it has all those nerves on the bottom.
Oh, I know. And when we're in shoes, we totally block this unless you have something like the Naboso insoles in. Shoes inherently disconnect us from the nerves in the bottom of the feet. This is all shoes, even minimal shoes. Now,
really, I
minimal,
have to be really, like when I'm walking, I'm always careful to really push down on the big toe. You know, I've listened to your different YouTubes and Instagrams, how important it is. In yoga, we talk about the triangle of the foot, or you call it the tripod,
yep,
big toe, little toe, heel.
yep. So we want to have a stable base, and we have to feel that base. So there are four main nerves in the bottom of the feet that are sensitive to information that helps us balance. One of those nerves is sensitive to, here's your drum roll, to texture, to texture. So the texture that we use on our different products is very specific to the certain nerve that's going to help you feel your feet. And that same nerve is the same nerve that your fingers read Braille. So our products are kind of like Braille for your feet. That's the way you can think of them. Okay?
Myrna's on now. Myrna's on now. I didn't know she brought some happy. That's Myrna. I see her picture. We talked about Myrna from your pilot program in our newsletter this month.
I saw, yes, Myrna is incredible. Her experience and her story of being able to connect to her feet again. For the listeners, she did use the Naboso insoles, which helped her to reconnect to that side. Anything that truly changes someone's life, like it did for Myrna, is why we do what we do at Naboso. Because, I mean, it's very hard to develop products and, you know, import them.
It sure is.
It's a whole thing. But
yeah.
it is people like Myrna and all of your listeners' experiences that will have a huge quality of life impact. That is why we actually started our company. So get out of your shoes.
I know. Well, get out of your
your
shoes. You even have a mat. So sometimes I practice on the yoga mat, the Naboso yoga mat, to feel the difference. There is a difference.
Yes. Yep. Yep. So our mind body mat has, it's a yoga mat size, has these exact same pyramids across it that wake up and stimulate, which is great.
Now, someone just asked if the insoles help improve walking and balance.
Yes, so that is their intent. So the pilot that Myrna was part of, that you had referenced in your newsletter, was a pilot that we had done roughly a year ago with our Neuro insole. And we had people wear the insoles for 6 weeks. And we noticed the exact number, I would have to look back, something like an 87% improvement in foot awareness.
Wow,
and
that's huge.
the way that it translated. Oh, sorry, there were 40 subjects. So 40 subjects.
That's a good sample size.
Yeah, they used our insoles. This was subjective, but I'm a big believer in subjective feedback, because if anyone who's listening, if you feel more confident moving, you will move better. If I'm scared of moving, I'm going to be more hesitant. I'm going to be
cautious. Yeah.
And the
anxious.
more cautious we are and anxious, it slows us down, right? We're kind of distracted. We're not tuned in and focused. So I find that is a great success. And then we're doing several other IRB controlled university or hospitals are doing studies with our products. And those will share information later when those come out.
That's fantastic. I did read about this study you talked about, I think, on your website, about how specific textures will improve balance and stability by reducing medial lateral sway. Now that's getting technical. But that helped you figure out which type of texture?
Yes. Yes. So our texture is very specific. Again, go back to the Braille. If someone just imagine Braille, go to the ATM and you can see Braille on ATMs. Like,
oh, that's a great analogy.
Yeah. So the spacing between the Braille dots and the size of the Braille dots is very specific. So it is the Naboso texture. We're trying to create
brilliant.
What's actually called 2-point discrimination. So texture is really not accurate. It's 2-point discrimination. So can I differentiate between these two pyramid points and feel 2 points? Or are my nerves not sensitive enough that it's a big blob and I'm not feeling the difference? That's really what Naboso does, and Braille.
Now I've heard, I have a yoga teacher who says, even if you have numbness, you still feel. And we try to teach that in our classes, that you may not have the same sensation you either used to have or somebody else has, but it is there and it is impacting you. And he tells a personal story about how when he had an MRI, parts of his, or was it PET scan? Which one is it? Where parts of the brain light up based on the fact that he is feeling, even though they can't, the doctors can believe, they're like, you can't feel. And he's like, oh yes, I am feeling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's actually really, really interesting. The other thing for the listeners is if they do have a little bit of numbness in their feet, this point of what you had said about different stimulation, I'm actually really glad you said that, because they might not feel hot and cold. They might feel pain, but they will feel texture, vibration, pressure, stretch. Like there's all this different stimulation.
All these different strategies.
Yeah, yeah. So even though you might not feel if something is hot, you might be able to feel the Naboso texture, so you could then still walk confidently, let's say, as an example. But for other ones with this brain lighting up, is even though you don't have the consciousness of it, your feet are still there. You still got to train them. You still got to stimulate them. This whole neuroplasticity, totally take advantage of that.
Does it work even if you can't feel it?
Yeah, 100% it works. You have to drive and challenge these nerves, and not just central nervous system. A lot of people think neuroplasticity means they don't want to get dementia, Alzheimer's, right? They want to protect the brain cognitively. So doing, Sudoku and crossword puzzles will challenge the brain as you get older, right? That's central nervous system. But we have all these peripheral nerves that are responsive as well, and we need to train those and challenge those.
I have a student who had numbness in her hands, so she had trouble cooking and would often burn herself. So would playing with the ball, or you have the weights too. I love those. I use those when practicing poses.
Yes. So the nerves on the hands are the same as on our feet. So you can definitely use our products for both hand and feet stimulus.
This seems like it slightly ties into reflexology, not really, but it feels like it does, because they have reflexology points on the hands and the feet as well. I don't know if it's about stimulation or not. Don't they press on the points?
We actually work with a lot of reflexologists who will use our products to integrate them. I love reflexology. I'm not trained in it, so I don't want to step beyond my bounds.
Yeah, me neither.
But
this is all beyond my bounds now.
Exactly. I really appreciate reflexology and acupressure. So those are similar. So you could just put them all in this bucket of complementary ways to stimulate and strengthen the feet.
I love that. The bucket of complementary wellness strategies.
I play with
modalities. That's awesome.
Yes. We play together.
And so what is, okay, you kind of talked about the relationship between neuroplasticity and stimulation. Spell it out, because I think this is really hopeful for people, that neuroplasticity provides hope that we can develop new pathways.
Yeah, so the concept of neuroplasticity, again, is very central nervous system based, that people started looking at and sharing. I think there's a few books that are out there as far as The Brain That Heals Itself.
Yes. Have you read Norman Doidge's book? Is it Norman Dodge or Doidge? He's from Canada.
And what is the title of the book?
You have the book?
No, what is the title of the book?
I don't know. I don't have it in front of me. But it's something about rewiring the brain. You can rewire your brain.
Okay. Yeah. So all of that is very much speaking about neuroplasticity, which is saying, our body, our nervous system is really based off of survival. This is how I break it down. If we're based off of survival, we are going to find a way to fix or rewire or create a new strategy so that we can continue to survive and live longer, right? This is very much seen in the circulatory system. If you start to get a blockage, like let's say in the blood vessels of your lower leg, your body creates collateral circulation to make sure that you still get circulation to your feet. It is a survival strategy. That's very similar to how I think about neuroplasticity, is that you keep challenging it, new synapses will form, they will find additional strategies, because it's a very complex teamwork up in that central nervous system. But then same thing peripherally, right? What you don't
Yes.
you lose, so challenge it to keep them strong.
The name of that book is The Brain That Changes Itself.
There you go. Yes.
Yes. It's so cool that we can rewire our brain. And really, they say pretty much until our last breath.
Yeah. Yeah. They used to think of it as primarily in children. I will say that the peak window of neuroplasticity is from newborn till about 4 years old. So that's when the child's brain is just wide open and it is just like synapse, 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 right? That's why I'm very passionate about sensory also for children, especially
Well,
like
you have a, is it baby or
two
babies?
Yes, yes. And she was on Naboso from the moment she was born. She walked
Like crawling. Well, what would you mean by that? Was she crawling on the mat, or not when she was born? She
yeah,
was
her
crawling
tummy
on the mat, but
on it. I gave a lot of foot massages when she was
yes.
yeah.
Everybody wants to be your baby. Yeah, we do that in Ayurveda too, which is the sister science of yoga. And my teacher, who's an Ayurvedist, I used to listen to her. You know, they got an oil massage all over their body as a baby.
I love it.
It's so awesome. It's so awesome. But this really provides hope for people. How would you say that this helps people with pain or neuropathy, or does it?
Yeah, so this is going to be anecdotal. So we do not make claims around this.
Of course.
However, we have had many users with painful neuropathy symptoms say that since integrating the Naboso products, that they do not need to take as much of their medication, or some have actually stopped their gabapentin and their Lyrica. Now, again, this is completely anecdotal. I'm not asking anyone to do anything. We need to do the research studies to support that. However, based off of other methods of handling painful chronic neuropathies with TENS units and other aspects of stimulation, there is a desensitization process that can happen. If I feel stimuli, and it's painful, I can distract the brain by bringing in another stimulus to then distract from this painful stimulus. And that's what I think has been happening with our products and those that did find a decrease in their painful symptoms. Again, we have to research it, but that's where you can kind of see that connection.
Well, a lot of this plays into mindfulness. I'm a mindfulness-based stress reduction teacher, and we are focused on breath, of course, and the sensation of breathing and sensation of movement.
Yep.
We're taught during meditation to not necessarily ignore the pain, but we can play with titrating and move from a focus of a part of the body that's not in pain, and then kind of revisit the pain and kind of go back and forth, teaching the brain that it's always changing, that we're not our pain, and in a different way of coping with the pain.
Yes, exactly. And pain is very complex. Pain is very,
it sure is,
subjective. You know, a patient's experience of a painful condition, whatever it is. I always took the approach of, who am I to say that they're exaggerating or they shouldn't be feeling that level of pain? Like, that's not, how do I know? It's their body. They could be.
right.
But I just feel typically, and unfortunately, in a lot of traditional Western medicine practices, that you find that there is a little bit of a lack of appreciation or honoring that person might actually be in that much pain, because it's really complex. And
it's so complex. To the brain sometimes registers that pain, and the source of the pain is gone. Yeah. So it takes real effort in rewiring to alleviate that. Someone just asked about, actually, she's one of our teachers. She asked about how it impacts circulation, and in particular, or example, Raynaud's. I know you mentioned how it improves circulation
That's
on
actually
your website.
a good question. So our stress level, the way that we breathe, our emotional state, so everything that you were just describing, Mindy, is linking into our autonomic nervous system. And the autonomic nervous system, which is safety versus survival, or parasympathetic, sympathetic, even though it's
Relaxation
a little right.
response.
Extra, I'm like fight or flight, right? So we kind of go between those. When we are stressed and anxious and having an elevated state, we're vibrating a little bit higher. You are stimulating this fight or flight stress survival response, which affects, it's the autonomic nervous system, but it affects and controls your blood vessels. So our blood vessels and their ability to dilate and constrict is under the control of the autonomic nervous system. So if I start to get anxious right away, I'm going to feel tightness in my vascular system. I can't control it. I mean, I could control it consciously after the fact.
Once you notice it.
Once I notice it. Right. But initially, that is this subconscious response to this emotional perception and how I breathe and triggering the autonomic nervous system. So when someone who does have Raynaud's, as an example, stress is a trigger, because stress triggers sympathetic, which is a vasoconstrictor. So if I get constricted, it's going to minimize my circulation to the tips of the toes and the fingers. It could be really painful. This is also, if some people have complex regional pain syndrome, or RSD, reflex sympathetic dystrophy, I think it's called, RSD, they are essentially sympathetic nervous system imbalances or dysfunctions, like the wiring to the sympathetic nervous system is off. And they'll say, I actually just saw a patient a couple weeks ago with it, and she'll say, every night my whole lower leg turns purple. And then the other one is, or it doesn't sweat the same, or the skin is kind of changing a little bit. My hair doesn't grow on that leg the same as the other leg, right? So they're essentially describing the autonomic nervous system response that they can't totally control. Let's say stress, as we had said, could totally make that worse, right? But then
so breathing and mindfulness might make it a little better.
Correct. Now, it won't reverse it. Typically in cases like that, it's medicines that are used, pharmaceuticals, because they're trick the system a little bit. But that's where I fully integrate mindfulness, breath work, yoga, everything that you do at Yoga MS or Yoga Moves, is because they're a chronic condition, right? That's chronic.
Yes. So now, long term.
Yep. Long term, how do I navigate that on a daily basis through you teaching me skills so that I have a higher quality of life?
Yes. Yeah. Now, how does this play in? This is a big one. How does this impact walking? Now, Myrna did mention that she's walking further and longer. And I know a lot of people are thinking, will this help my ambulation?
Yes. Everything is about, my goal is to get people walking. Because once you walk, you drive the circulatory pump, you bring in vibration, which is stimulating to the bones and the connective tissue. It obviously, if you're walking outside, it's going to improve your mood. So many benefits to being able to ambulate or walk. So by using the Numbness products, let's say the insoles as an example, by having these in your shoes and stimulating these very special nerves, and you can feel your feet, that means you can feel the ground. So I know how I'm placing my foot down. My walking accuracy goes up. So I want to accurately put my foot down. I need to know where it is in order to put it down the right way.
So when you say accuracy, do you mean like you feel like heel ball toe, the way you sense it?
Yep. So accuracy, awareness, perception. I'm sure there's a few other words that you could think of that kind of mean the same thing, of how I need someone to just feel their feet when they walk, right? Because that's going to then translate to the way that they walk and that confidence.
Yes. Yes. We have, for some people who aren't feeling comfortable standing or walking, we'll have them walk in place in the chair during yoga and
Yep.
really come in contact with the feet.
Yep.
I want to show you the yoga handshake. Have you seen that before? The yoga handshake, you guys?
Yes.
You might not be able to get all your fingers in there, but it is one way. And then you have these are one of the most comfortable your yoga, what do you call them? Yoga toes.
Or splay. Yeah. So
the splay ones.
Yes. These are our new.
Show those.
Yep. So these are our toe spacers. Now, why the toe spacers are good is that part of balance. One of the most important parts of balance outside of feeling your feet is your toes have to touch the ground. It's called purchase. So I need your toes on the ground straight and pushing down. So strong toes, straight toes, toes on the floor. And then I need you to be able to feel your feet, feel that tripod or that triangle that you spoke about. So that's where I would use the toe spacers for balance in this conversation of how we're talking about it.
I really like yours. Years ago when I first started yoga therapy, they were really uncomfortable. They were hard, and it was like you wanted to cry if you kept them on too long. And the other really nice thing about yours is that it has the top layers, so they stay on. So it's easier to keep them on once they're on.
Yep, exactly. And we have people say that they're extremely comfortable because they're, I can kind of squish it like this. So it's very squishy, stretchy, hopefully easy to get on. Especially for those that might have a little bit of like arthritis in the hand, to be able to get those on. But they definitely are a great way to improve balance. So I actually consider them a balance tool also.
You just made me think. I wonder if you could put them on your hand and stretch your hand out or something. I don't know. I got to think about that.
We'll have to play around.
My students, when I first started teaching, I'd say, lift your toes. After I read Norman Doidge's book, lift your toes, and they'd look at me like, are you crazy? I haven't lifted my toes in years, MS or no MS. And one of my favorite stories is how it's a doctor who has MS, Dr. Jody, and she's still one of our students on our Tuesday night class, but she just laughed at me like I was crazy. And a few months later, she was in spinal balance, and I saw her laughing, and I'm like, what is with you, Jody? She goes, I just moved my toes.
I love it. I love it. You got to move the toes. Right?
Yeah. So as we cap it off here, I have one question for you. I was thinking about bridge pose, and I was watching one of your demos, and you said there were some, I love how, I watch things, and in yoga is very much integrated in. I'm sure you have other modalities you're integrating in, Pilates and different movement. Are you a dancer? I watch your movements.
No. I was a gymnast.
You were a gymnast. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And so, you talk about bridge pose and the 4 common mistakes sometimes people make. And then what did you, so one of them was they're not breathing. One was they were using their glutes. We talk about that a lot, that squeezing the buttocks, that's been a big controversy in yoga, because you go to a physical therapy and therapists, and they often say, squeeze your glutes. And we say more like tone, and don't, we don't. Yeah. So building different muscles this way. Yep. And then you said overachieving. What do you mean? And then forgetting the lift. What did you mean by that?
So I totally know the post that you're referencing is the way
you're on your back. The knees are up.
Yeah.
Bent. Feet are towards your hips.
So I want that to be a deep core awareness exercise, let's say, or movement. And when you are doing like a bridge, so you're coming up like this with your hips, you want to lead it with your pelvic floor. So
I
as
love this. I
yeah,
love this.
as you're
I'm
lifting,
obsessed with the pelvic floor too.
me too. I have a pelvis coming. I just ordered it so I can start showing it on Instagram.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes. But yes, so your pelvic floor lifts. It's a tone tension based muscle. So this overactivation that you were referencing of the glutes, anywhere I don't like it, I call it say hello. So say hello to your pelvic floor.
Oh, love it. A lot of people do not know. We don't know where our pelvic floor is.
Yes, yes. So on my Instagram and YouTube, I have a bunch of stuff about if you build pelvic floor awareness on the floor on your back, I need you to then stand up and be able to engage it here also. And a lot of people kind of lose orientation of the pelvic floor as soon as they stand up. So that's something
Interesting.
you really want to make sure that you can do a contraction in all different relationships.
Yeah, we do it in goddess pose, you know, with your feet wide.
Yeah.
Actually, in many poses like warrior and
Yes.
goddess and
Yes.
wide stances.
So that's really what that post was referencing. The thing with the glutes is that a lot of people like to get into the muscles they can touch, right? Like I can squeeze my butt, I can, right? But that doesn't mean that the joint and the tiny little muscles under it are stable or contracting. So I'm very much about the order in which we contract muscles, the degree at which we contract muscles, even outside of the pelvic floor. The foot exercises you see on social media are built around like trying to hypertrophy and fatigue the foot. It doesn't work that way. It's kind of like the pelvic floor. They're postural muscles. So
Yes.
you're not supposed to do like a 1 rep max or like hard for the
We're
foot.
not looking to fatigue.
Yeah, same thing with the pelvic floor because it's you want to say hello and then
Give it a little break.
Yeah.
And then go back in again.
Yeah. You're kind of like this. This is how I explain it. So it's like a wave, right? And I coordinate that wave with your breath. So as you inhale, you're technically relaxing the pelvic floor. As you exhale, you're going to lift and say hello to the pelvic floor. Inhale, wave comes down, relax the pelvic floor. Exhale, right? So and you kind of go back and forth like that. And then you can
just like the wave of the breath.
Yes, and integrate.
We are on the same wave for sure.
Yeah, excellent. And then the
This
last,
is all connected.
I want the listeners to know is that when you do exhale and say hello to the pelvic floor, push your toes down.
Ooh, so that's what I was going to ask you. How are the feet connected to this?
Yes.
So you exhale, at the end of the exhale, you pull your pelvic floor in and up and push down through your feet?
Yes. And then
I love that direction. That's awesome.
Yes.
And you can do that in so many poses, not just bridge. Yeah, even mountain pose and seated.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you to all the listeners who came on today. And we're going to record this session and make it available. If you want to learn more about Dr. Emily, do you want to tell them how they can find you?
Yes. So follow me on Instagram, which is obviously where I am right now. Follow me. My practice is my name. All of this links on my Instagram if people won't remember this, but I do see patients virtually. Actually, a majority of my patients are virtual.
Really?
My practice is just my name. So dremilysplichal.com. Again, it's linked through Instagram. For all of the Naboso products, this is naboso.com. naboso.com. You did have it on the image on your Instagram. You had the URL so people can look back on that if they want. And then the code YMMS gives people 10% off. So YMMS.
In capital letters.
Yes.
YMMS stands for Yoga Moves MS.
Yes. And then that
Thank you so much for offering that discount to our students and community.
I want the listeners to be able to access and integrate the products because they are here to help you.
Thank you so much. I feel like we're so much on the same wavelength in so many different ways.
Yes.
Sensory stimulation, mindfulness, pelvic floor, obsession with the feet.
I love it. I love it. We'll have to do it again then.
Yes, for sure. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody Just to recap, that Yoga Moves MS is a nonprofit that provides adaptive yoga for people with MS and Parkinson's and other similar neuromuscular conditions. The classes are complimentary. And of course, we love donations, but they are complimentary. We provide wellness education as well. So you can learn more about us at yogamovesms.org. Feel free to email me. We really want to hear from you and hope that you will join us. Thank you so much, Dr. Emily.
Of course. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Have an amazing.
Namaste. Namaste.
Take care.
Bye-bye. You too.